My name is Stanley Sword and I have the great privilege to meet Nathan Adrian here today, live from San Francisco. Amazing town. And you have good swimming waters, even though it's very cold. You have to be a fugitive to swim good in these waters. It's both currents and sharks.
There's both currents and sharks, so that's why I do most of my training at the pool in Berkeley, just across the water.
Yeah, and you started out 27 years ago when you were 2 years old. It's and I have a 2-year-old now myself, so I try it out to see if my kids become Olympic champions. And at the age of 5, you started to compete.
Yes.
Is it did it was fun from the beginning? Was it playing laughter, or when did your motivation and focus start?
Yeah, so I'll just kind of, I've told the story a couple times, so I'll just kind of retell it again if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So started 2 years old it was just a learn to swim thing. It was a water safety. It was making sure, and I grew up in a town in Washington State that was close to a lot of water, a lot of coastline, a lot of our parks, that our parents were taking us to were right there. And no one would ever want you to be looking over at the fish or the mussels and stuff on the pilings of the dock and fall in. And if that happens, then you can at least swim to the ladder. You can swim close, whatever. That was the genesis, the beginning of all of this. Yeah. And then 5 years old, I was with my mom, and we had gone to the pool to go pick up my older brother and sister because they were on the swimming team and they were at practice. And I saw my best friend from first grade in the water right then. I was like, whoa, awesome, cool. I think I'm ready to do this. I want to sign up for a swim team now too, because I just want some more time to hang out with my best friend. And it was really lucky for me to have him there because we had a good time, right? We were such good friends from such a young age that even though it was swimming and you were learning a lot of lessons about hard work and time management and stuff, all the way through probably about 6th, 7th, 8th grade was when that transition started going from this is something that I do for fun, I really like to race, to how do I take control of this? How do I put myself in a position to be better than I otherwise would? And that was really important for me as that 6th, 7th, 8th grader to have something that was kind of my very own, right? Because a lot of times you're living in your parents' house and you're doing a lot of things under your parents, and there's school certainly, which is something that you can take ownership over too. But it was really nice to have something else that was and just a disclaimer here, I know it's not just me. It's a lot of coaching, it's a lot of parents doing hard work, driving me back and forth to the pool. But I was the one that was actually swimming the laps, and I was the one that was actually doing the races. So I took a lot of ownership over what my times were come the end of the day. And if I had a big drop in times, again, there was a lot of things that went into it, but I was really proud of myself when that happened.
And you're a big guy now. I'm glad I'm not sitting next to you because you're 98 centimeters long and 100 kilograms pure power.
Well, we try to be pure power. Sometimes, sometimes the San Francisco food and the amazing deep dish pizza that's about 2 blocks away from me, but I do my best to stay away.
And that when you become a swimmer, does your body evolve in a specific way? Because I train boxing myself and usually end up with a nose like that. How do you become a swimmer?
Yes, that's a great question. So there's 2 sides of that. Swimming kind of chooses you, and then you kind of choose swimming. It's a little bit of both, certainly. I think the things that make me good at swimming make me bad at land sports. Just an example, I have really flat feet. So, that kind of throws my hips and my knees off because as humans, we're supposed to have a little bit of an arch, but, when my feet get wet and I walk on the pool deck, you can see an entire flat footprint. And that's really good because I have a little bit more surface area on the bottom to push the water, back with. And then on top of that, I have pretty flexible shoulders, which is good for swimming. I think a lot of people that are good at throwing have the same kind of thing. But, in a lot of sports, it would be too much flexibility. And like a football, for instance, American football, let me explain. Yeah. Because I would probably dislocate my shoulder too much just because I have too much natural flexibility.
Yeah. And your mother is from Hong Kong originally. and she's a nurse, and your father in nuclear physics or something similar to that. and that blend became a 5-time Olympic champion. Did you take the best from both worlds? Because I traveled some in China and Hong Kong, and people are quite competitive there, and they're quite competitive when I was in America as well. Did you kind of blend that power together, or?
Yeah, no, I mean that's a great question. I think both my parents were really hard workers, and I think that was probably if you were like, hey Nathan, what was the one thing that your parents taught you, and the biggest message the most important message you learned from them, and for the record, again, there's a ton of them, but this is the number one thing. It was that hard work pays off, and it doesn't always pay off immediately, but it will eventually. Okay, so it's like, there's been seasons and times where I put in a lot of hard work the entire year, and you don't even drop time, and that is so frustrating. But the true failure in that entire process would be quitting. So I saw my parents live that. They were never the ones going, I don't know, just going and gambling on this or that, or changing jobs a ton because they wanted to just chase a higher salary or this or that. They just chose what they wanted to work at, and then they worked at it really hard. And I saw them achieve a lot of success from that. So that's kind of what I tried to emulate.
What lessons from your youth would you take with you to the next generation when you become a father?
Oh man,
you have a lot of nieces and your sisters and brother, and they have kids, so you're already learning.
I have nieces and nephews. I think I think that hard work pays off is certainly one of them. Consistent hard work will beat any amount of just like sporadic, really intense work, in my opinion. And then also just being able to explore. Don't be too scared to try new things, and try your hardest at it. There is, again, like something that I've learned, and I learned this the hard way. I was so afraid of failure that it affected my personal performance at a swim meet one time. And I was paying attention to what other people were predicting that I was going to do, and I just got caught up in it, and I thought to myself, like, man, like, I gotta win, and I ended up losing. And then I took a step back, and I was like, you know what, like, it's okay. My family still loves me. My friends still are my friends. Like, the world still goes on, after something that is a failure, and it's okay. I think I let that affect myself, and I took that and learned the lesson from it. But if I was to go back, I personally do believe, given that time, my condition and how strong I was, I should have been able to swim fast. But because I let other people's expectations kind of creep into my own head, I swam slower because of it.
And the transition from a professional athletic career, I mean, when you have won 5 Olympic gold medals, it's hard to compete with that in real life. That thrill and that edge of life. How do you make the transition nowadays?
That's what I hear.
Yeah.
I haven't quite transitioned yet. I actually just got back from practice.
Yeah.
But what I have definitely learned in life is to harness your strengths. Yeah. And for me, one of my strengths is my competitive nature. And I've worked on in the last 3-4 years being able to turn it on and turn it off. And I think that's really, really important because sometimes I admittedly I probably get a little too intense when we're playing a board game or when we're playing video games with my friends or this or that, and being able to switch that on and off is really important. But having that competitive nature, you can take whatever task it is that you're given, and you can set a goal. And you can set a goal to beat either yourself or even if it's someone else or whatever it is. And that competitive drive can give you the motivation that you need in order to achieve that.
Yeah. So in business, in all kind of careers, you can use the competitiveness from
Absolutely.
Yeah. And do you have any other lessons from your world that you can kind of export into other fields?
Yeah, I think one of the most important things that swimming has taught me is time management. And it was way, way, way back my freshman year, which is now over 10 years ago, that I also learned this lesson the hard way. And just for your viewers, to explain the American athletic system a little bit, you come in as an athlete, but you're also a student too, and you have both responsibilities for your school to perform in the classroom, because if you fail your classes, you're not eligible to compete for your school, and then you got to be good in the pool too. So they have some mandatory study hours where you have to go in, check into the study center, and do 10 hours a week, say, or something like that. But 10 hours a week where you have a bunch of athletes in the same room, you just end up talking. You just end up being social, and it ends up being 10 hours of social hour where you get to know your fellow student athletes. But I learned for myself that I really had to engage in whatever it is that I was doing at the time. So those hours were kind of worthless for me, because I needed to spend not 10 hours of being kind of social. I needed to spend 4 hours of really intensely studying. I needed to go to a coffee shop, put on headphones with no music on, just so people would leave me alone, and I could just have some alone time with my screen or with my notes or whatever it was, and I could hammer that out and get it done, and then I could engage in whatever it was I was doing next. So in that way, I wasn't thinking about school or being social while I was at swimming, because I'd done all my schoolwork, so I could really, really focus on getting better in the pool. And then since I had taken care of that, I could wipe that off the table, and then I could really, really intensely take care of my studies when it came time to study, and then I could wipe that off the table. And then on the weekends, I could go out and hang out with my friends and have no, hanging issues in the back of my head, like, oh man, I should be studying right now. Oh man, like, I didn't necessarily train as hard as I should have this last week. Like, maybe I should do that. So it was really about learning how to engage into, anything that you're currently engaged in.
And that focus and grit is the thing is common for all athletes, all entrepreneurs all across the world. Can you harness that thing, or are you born with it?
I think as with all things, it's a little bit of both. And then there's even a third aspect, I think. So you can harness, you can be born with it a little bit, and then you can try to gain it. And then there's everybody's trainability. That's how I kind of think about it. And trainability is a little bit of a genetic gift too. You just got to but you also have to have an open mind. It's something that I definitely had to learn. And I do personally believe that I have gotten better at it as the years have gone on.
And with I just read the Phil Knight's biography about Nike and the journey. People are running all over the world. How do you make them swim all over the world? How can you inspire us all to, instead of putting on the running shoes, just step into the water?
Yeah, that's a great question that we're currently trying to solve.
It's what's the three best things with swimming? Do you have the highlights? Why should we start swimming?
All right, let's say number one is, I think that it's a great workout. It's a full body workout. Ask anybody who swam after not swimming for a while, man. That's a cardiovascular and even like a muscular workout that you just can't get anywhere else. I think two, it's really important for people like me who have bad hips and knees, or I shouldn't say bad, I should say bad for running. That I can get that kind of good workout and never really have to worry about it, right? My dad just got both his knees replaced last year because he played too much football, and he was just pounding on his knees constantly, and he had no cartilage left. So, hopefully, knock on wood, I won't have to look forward to something like that. And then number three, I think it's an amazing sport that really, there's a lot of amazing people that are involved in it. Ask anybody on a swim team. Ask a swim parent what it's like interacting with the other swim parents, because it's not easy to be a swim parent. You really truly care about your child. About them being surrounded by good people, about them learning a lot of valuable life lessons. And once you get a lot of like-minded people together, you end up gaining a lot of good friends. And
you're from a generation that harnessed tremendous athletes. In Sweden, we had this era with the tennis. We had Björn Borg and a lot of
Yeah.
other and great genius. They need each other to make that sparkle. Make that if you're alone, you can't do it. You have Michael Phelps.
Yep.
How has that been for?
Well, I think it kind of circles back to a little bit about what you were talking about competitive nature and competition. I think the reason why Team USA is so good is because we have to constantly compete with each other domestically all the time. For a national, whether it be for a national title, whether it be for just a local swim meet in just California. I mean, we have, I don't remember, 20, 40 million people in California. Like, it's a lot, but, we have a lot of swimmers. So you got to compete against some of the best swimmers in the world just going to your local meet. And then once the time comes to compete against the world, we're used to it, man. Yeah. This is just another day for us that we're just trying to compete and trying to get our hand on the wall first, and it's normal. So we don't. I think I speak for myself, I guess, but I don't necessarily get more nervous as I walk up to the blocks for World Championships because it's just another race.
And when you watch swimmers, how do you see if they're very fast? Because if you watch runners, you can see them, just boom, take off like Ben Johnson at 100 meters. How should we look at swimming in the right way?
Well, I think the intricacies of swimming aren't necessarily as well appreciated as a lot of the intricacies in something like running, for instance, or golf. I think you gotta really dig deep into what their stroke technique is, or what how flexible their body is, or how strong versus explosive they are, and kind of look into that. And then as coaches, they figure out what aspects of that athlete they can truly emphasize and develop. And then at the end of the season, it all comes together. And watching that happen at a lot of different places, again, going back to the American college system, we have probably 5-6 different main universities that are just consistently taking really good athletes and making them great athletes. And not a single one of those do it in the same way. So there's different ways to do this, obviously, to achieve similar or the same results at the end of the day. But to watch it kind of unfold in the different ways that it does is really fun.
And in swimming, you're not only competing against others, you're also competing against yourself, the clock, the time. How is that to go out against yourself? It's like jabbing 12 rounds against yourself.
That's great. I think that's, and everybody's motivated just a little bit differently. I'm definitely learning this as I get a little bit older, and I've cycled through a whole lot of different teammates. I do my best to make the teammates around me better, and in return, I think I get a lot of power from them, pushing me every day. So different athletes are motivated in different ways, whether it be, hey, I know going this time would be good for you on this set. Let's try to be just a little bit faster than that. Or there's other athletes who are like, hey, man, I'm going to crush you on this, and look him in the eye and say that to him. And I know that fires him up. And in return, that fires me up to go faster. So at the end of the day, we're both better because of that. And then, we give him a handshake and a big hug after practice, say, man, that was awesome. Thank you for being there. Thank you for making me better.
You grow together.
Exactly.
And your daily routines, what do they look like?
So I'll give you for instance, today, I woke up at just a little bit before 5 a.m. because I had practice over in Berkeley at 6. Yeah. I had the foresight to make myself some overnight oats. So I, put some oats in a bowl, and then put some coconut milk and some walnuts and some berries and some chia seeds and all sorts of different good stuff. Yeah. And I left it in the fridge overnight, so when I woke up, I could just eat that and go on my way to practice. I practiced from 6 to 8. From 8 until about 8:30, I was eating breakfast, and then from about 9 until 11 or so, I was doing physical therapy. It just takes a lot of, like we were talking about, that flexibility in your shoulders. It means that some aches and pains kind of show up. Doing a lot of weights just means you got to really take care of your body. So that's this Wednesdays are kind of like my weekly tune-up. And then I drove for an hour because San Francisco Bay Area traffic is terrible. And then here I am doing an interview.
Yeah.
And then after this, Wednesday afternoons I have off. I'm a little bit older than the athletes that I train with, so they actually swim in the Wednesday afternoons. But at this point in time, I can't really recover from that much, that extra practice. So, I'm just going to kind of spend the rest of the day. I have some just random tasks, whether it be emails or some paperwork, and just general recovery.
And the mental training, what do you do for that? How do you strengthen your mind?
That's a great question. Actually, I think the portion of swimming that I unfortunately missed out a little bit on in my younger years, that we're just kind of getting around to now. Certainly, everybody these days is doing mindfulness and meditation. I'm definitely one of those people too. I'm doing my best to try to meditate, 10, 20 minutes a day when you can, focusing on your breath, working on slowing down your heart rate, that kind of stuff. It's the hardest thing about swimming for me is to go from that fight or flight where I'm just really intense, training, all about going fast, and then trying to switch that off as quickly as possible into that, relaxed zone, into the recovery phase, into the walking slow and all that sort of stuff. And I think the better I could do that these days, the better I can recover. So that's definitely the mental training that I'm working on. Actually, there's a place in Colorado Springs called the Olympic Training Center, and they'll basically put a little cap on your head, and then they'll help you work on that because they'll have a little monitor that shows your brain waves and give you tips, techniques, and things to try to help either lower those down or increase your focus to try to work on that. So as we go back and do more training camps at the Olympic Training Center, I will definitely be working on that.
And how many can live professionally out of swimming? Because in soccer here in Sweden, we have hundreds of them. But in tennis, globally, it's only 100 men that can live and thrive on tennis.
That's a great point. I don't know. I don't know. I know our roster, so 26. So we have probably 80 people, maybe 70 people on the U.S. national team. That means you get health benefits. That means you get access to the Olympic Training Center. That means you get other certain benefits. I can't remember them off the top of my head. But for true funding, you need to have a certain world rank, and obviously the higher the better. But I think funding will begin at top 16 or so. I can't remember again, but the idea is that I maintain being top 8, so I don't have to worry about it.
And your journey was on the other side before, in the Florida Keys, Key West, where I've also been both on honeymoon and with friends. It's an amazing place.
Yes.
You swam there.
So it was actually Key Largo. It was about mile marker 90. So if you remember, there's a highway that goes down, and the mile markers kind of count down the miles.
Took the Cadillac down.
There.
Our journey I never forget.
Yeah, it's amazing. So I was about mile marker 90. To be honest, that was a long time ago now. That was 10 years ago. That was in preparation for the 2008 Olympics. I was just a 19-year-old kid. I was training with the best sprinters in the world, which was amazing for me. With the race club and Gary Hall Jr. and Gary Hall Sr., who were amazing, amazing people to me. And that experience is something I'll never forget because I had just swam my freshman year in college, just being a 17, 18-year-old. And here I am, my years from 18 to 19, being able to train like a professional swimmer and being able to see what goes into the life of a professional swimmer and, what it could potentially mean for me. So that really helped motivate me as I came back to college to be like, man, that's something I want to do. That was really cool, and I liked it.
Yeah, and I remember from high school we had swimming classes, and we had wrestling classes, and we had a golf classes as well. And the swimmers, they were the most, they went up early, and they put in the hours before when I was asleep. They were down in the pool giving 100%. Is there a special force within you in the swimming community, that discipline, that grit?
I would actually have to say that everyone has that special force, but swimming helps bring it out.
Yeah, awaken the force within you.
Yeah, exactly. So you never know what you're capable of until someone challenges you, right?
Yeah.
I certainly believe that, and I am of the personal belief that in swimming, the reason why we continually see these world records going down is because these these records keep going down, and the younger generations see it, and they see what they need to do, they see what they need to put into it, and what the times they need to go in practices to be ultimately at that higher level.
Yeah.
I wish that I was a 15-year-old seeing some of these guys going the times they're going now, and see where I would be today. Unfortunately, we can't turn back the clock. I just do my best to pretend.
Yeah. And is there a limit? Is there a stop? Because the clock can't go down to zero.
Right. Yes.
Where do you think the limit is?
There is a limit. I think, honestly, I think track and field is much closer to that limit because you see world records going down much more seldom with them. And I think swimming has still a long way to go. I think a lot of it has to do with, again, how different swimmers' bodies are, and how they can kind of, all the different ways of being successful in the pool because of the hydrodynamics and how thick water is. And just maybe we're just a sport that's a little bit behind in terms of, how far human performance can go.
And a lot of you wax your body, and the girls, they put on the shark bikinis before. Is there any other ways to cut the times down?
Yeah, I mean we're the shaving thing and wearing the fastest suit that you can find. Certainly a big deal. I think that what we had kind of touched on were more of the forefront of what's going to make the big leaps and jumps in swimming performances, where it's kind of human psychology. Still definitely an element of physiology, and that the coaches are going to take care of that, right? The sports performance research, all that kind of stuff. But for us as swimmers, it's about figuring out a way to recover the best that you can, and then be in the right mental state when the time comes.
And in a very short time, you had gotten tremendous experiences with the Olympics. You have 5 Olympic gold medals, and you've been active in 3 different Olympics. It's an amazing journey. To tell us about these 3 different steps into the future.
It's funny. People ask me all the time, like, man, what was your favorite Olympics? I'm like, man, you can't make me choose. Like, you just told me you have 5 kids. What's your favorite kid? Each one I experienced from a different perspective because I was at a different age, right? I go at 19, 23, 27. And B, I was a different, emotional maturity from that. Not to mention, that's even before you talk about the experience from the host countries. That's just simply me experiencing that differently. So, it's been a lot of fun. I think 2008 was amazing for me. I'll just go over kind of highlights from each of them. 2008 was amazing because I got to see a lot of my idols swim. I got to see Jason Lezak chase down the Frenchman for the relay victory. I got to see Michael Phelps do what he did best and get those 8 gold medals. I got to see Dara Torres do what she does, and then I got to see Natalie Coughlin do what she does. Unfortunately for Natalie, Michael got his 8, but Natalie had an amazing historic performance of her own.
Yeah.
So I got to watch that, and at that being at such a young time in my career, I got to kind of see who I was most similar to and what I felt like made them achieve success, and then try to copy it.
Yeah.
So then I could kind of create who I was and learn and identify who I wanted to be as an athlete. And then moving forward, 2012, I was at this point where I was another face on the national team. I was a guy that was, pretty consistent and always there. And then I ended up winning, and that was amazing. There's certainly nothing quite like winning an individual gold at the Olympics. And then 2016 rolls around, and it's a completely different role because instead of just being that guy who's been there for a while, I'm the defending Olympic champion. And then I was elected captain, which is to this day probably one of the highest honors that I feel like that has ever been bestowed upon me. So, I took that really seriously, and I think that, we had some really, really great leadership on that 2016 team, not counting myself. I'm talking about, the other captains and the other coaches that were kind of in charge at that point. And we had a historic performance in terms of medal count. We were right up there with the highest medal count that we've ever had. So each one of those was special for different reasons, but I'm just really glad to be a part of every single one of them.
And what the qualities behind you becoming a captain? What do you think your leadership qualities are? How others would describe you.
That's hard. You might have to ask someone else. I do my very best, and I genuinely believe that as a teammate, the more that you invest into your other teammates, the more that they are going to invest into you, and the better that we as a collective group can be as a whole. And that, if you put that on the surface, it basically, you're just saying, let's all be friends. And that sounds kind of silly when you say it like that simplistically, but I genuinely believe that we are all better because of that. And I do my best to try to foster an environment. And again, I'm just an athlete leader. I'm not actually in charge of everything, but I do communicate with USA Swimming, trying to give them suggestions on how to best foster an environment that's conducive to, a positive atmosphere, but also, again, I don't think you have to try really with a bunch of Olympians to have that competitive nature there.
You're in the Bay Area now, is where the greatest companies in the world are located and the best working environments. Did you take something of that into your team as well, you think?
It's funny. I definitely live in the Bay Area bubble. We'll talk about your bubble, and I'm like, oh yeah. It's hard. Sometimes it's hard for me to be like, oh yeah, you guys don't have that app or that that technology or this or that. But I do think that it makes its ways in undertones. I don't necessarily think that I haven't read Mark Zuckerberg's book or something and be like, this is what I gotta be as a leader. This is what I have to do. I think that those leadership styles from those amazing leaders that have been in the Bay Area kind of precipitate out to those people, and I interact with those people on a daily basis. So then that kind of gets absorbed by me.
Can you be disruptive in swimming or in leadership of swimmers?
Oh man, this is not where I thought this was gonna go. I don't.
Perhaps that's your next step, to disrupt swimming as a whole.
I think that
swim backwards.
We don't need a disruption. I don't think on the national team. I don't think we need a disruption. I think that we're doing a great job. I think we're taking care of the needs of the entire team as a whole, as seen again by our medal count, as seen by the fact that I'm pretty sure we had a swimmer in every single Olympic final except for one of them. I mean, that's amazing. Yeah. And the things that you can do are marginal at best, whether it be from USA Swimming's perspective or as a leader of the team. I do love the idea that you're talking about being disruptive, and we had talked about trying to increase, swimming as its status and elevate that. And I think that's where the disruption can happen. We're working on it. We're trying to figure it out. It's not easy because a lot of good and smart people have worked on it in the past, but we're gonna do our best. Certainly, as I transition from someone who's on the national team as an athlete to someone who was a former athlete, and I'm not. To answer your next question, I'm not sure what I'm gonna do next. I don't know what my career is gonna be, but I do know for a fact it's gonna be impossible to separate me, from swimming completely.
Yeah, and take us through a race where you won a gold medal in the Olympics. That's amazing journey in the water, like a shark going after his prey.
Yeah, here's the thing. Sharks can move way faster than me and way longer than me.
You have to disrupt on the side because they can't turn so fast.
I remember that race very, very well. I mean, certainly one of my most vivid memories from 6 years ago. So, I had a really good sense of calm and cool and collectiveness in there, and I was.
You're standing on the pallet before you go into the water. What's in your mind there?
Nothing.
Nothing. It's empty.
No. Listen, how many people have stepped up on the Olympic blocks and said, man, this is my one chance. I have to change something. I have to, go perform out of my mind to achieve this Olympic gold medal. Everyone does that, all right? And they either like go out too fast and then just don't have enough energy on the way home, or get caught up in their head and mess it up. We were at the point that we had trained and trained with such intensity and focus that everything was on autopilot, all right? From the steps I was taking out to the blocks to the speed at which I was taking off my clothes, because I knew how long I like to be warm before I race, and I also like to have just a little bit of time and not be rushed as I'm taking off my clothes. Those are all things that you can only get from rehearsal. I'm not going to have a stopwatch in my hand and be like, okay, 10 seconds, I got to take off this part of my thing, and then 15 seconds, I got to take off my next sock. That's not where it is. It's from, again, those meets and those competitions that we have domestically that I get to rehearse that over and over and over. And then once you get time, get to the meet, it's kind of just like my body knows how to do this, my brain knows how to do this. I just got to put myself in the best position to achieve peak performance.
Are you in flow there?
Yeah, at that point I certainly was. And I do attribute that. You ask about leadership and what I think makes a successful team. I had one of the best roommates that I've ever had in my life in Matt Grievers. He was Olympic champion, 100 backstroke, could be Olympic champion and being a really good friend. He's just a really awesome guy, positive, smiles, knows how to make you laugh, knows when to be quiet. I think that's an undervalued skill. It was really nice because I had him by my side the entire time. He went out of his way to ask the coaches, hey, is it okay if I stay back from the session a little bit so I can ride the bus with Nathan and just kind of be there with him through this process, through warm-up, and just kind of be there as his buddy. And, I gained so much from that. And, I do my best at this point to be that for him and anybody else who needs it.
And then you go into the water, you break the surface. What happens there in the winning race?
So, swimming is an interesting sport because everybody's body physiology is a little different, and then everybody's training is a little bit different. So for me, I had a lot of speed. I feel like I was one of the faster guys. I was, looking back on it off the top of my head, I was probably the second fastest 50 freestyler in that race. So I was one of the guys who needed to hold back on the first lap and make sure that I had enough coming on the second lap. Whereas some of the other guys who maybe are a little bit more of an endurance athlete, they have to, really race out and make sure they're close to the fast guys and then, storm home and then try to beat everyone. So, for me, I was in my head, I was like, you know what, you have the speed, like relax, try to do your best to just, be out right where you need to be in front for that first 50, and then, try to build the last 50 and hammer it home. I say we collectively as swimmers, we all know what it's like to go out too fast. We all know what it's like to burn up your legs and not have anything on the way home. So it's a fine balance between, just trying to, grit it out and, do one of these where you just grit your teeth. I'm sure as a boxer, you probably like you're coming to that point, the 10th round or whatever, and it's like every muscle in your body is tensing up. But, for us, like as swimmers, the more you can kind of relax and stay in that flow state, you're going to be better.
And how do you watch your competitors? Do you
Well, so Speedo has been great because they created some goggles that, I can see probably out here, and that's great. I will say we do our best to not watch our competitors because that'll mess up your own game plan, and that becomes a problem. But again, disclaimer, I can't help it sometimes. When you look at the underwater footage of my 2012 race, we flipped, and I was doing my streamline, and I was doing my dolphin kicks, and you can see distinctly I go, just to take a look over there. I didn't mean to. I tell people not to do that, but we are not. None of us are perfect. I will, to my credit, say I at least chose a good opportunistic time to do so because you're in your streamline and moving your head just a little bit over here isn't going to ruin you. If I was swimming and I did one of these, that's where you're just going to blow it all. So You know, I took my chance to look.
And how much are you in the water, and how much are you in the air? What's the ideal mix there?
That's a good question. I am one of the. I'm not as good at dolphin kick as a guy like Michael Phelps was. He totally revolutionized dolphin kick, and it's been incredible watching, you know, the repercussions of that, because that made its way into what coaches were doing training younger athletes, and now we're seeing these, you know, the elite athletes with this amazing base of dolphin kick, and it's really fun to watch. It's less fun to compete against, that's for sure. But you know, I'm probably only kicking about 10 meters off the wall, and I do a lot of work on my body position in the water. So we're doing our best to try to stay like on top of the water, right? Because, you know, anybody who's ever gone on a boat or a jet ski knows that you can plane on the water. I think in swimming there's a little bit similar, you know, techniques and qualities to planing. And for me, I can feel when I'm on top of the water or when I'm below, and even the subtleties from the pitch. You know, if this is my legs, you know, if I'm just kind of cruising through the water, I'm just going straight, right? I'm just going straight and just kind of plowing through a little bit like a tugboat, right? But if I'm trying to go really fast and get on top of the water, I'm sinking my legs down a little bit, trying to get my torso up on the water so my upper body can kind of crawl along and be a little bit elevated and a little bit out of the air. And so you're going to see a little bit more of that in the 50. You're going to see all of that in the 50. I take it back. And then in the 100 is where you're going to see the transition and a little bit of switch, because I don't think anybody can be on top of the water for a full, you know, minute and 50 seconds that the 200 or above takes. But when we're talking about 47 seconds, that's where, you know, you're kind of 50-50 anaerobic to aerobic in terms of your energy production. And that's where you can, on a good day, maintain being on top of the water.
And if we look at you versus Michael Phelps, what's the differences and similarities between you?
Michael is, to this day, I truly believe Michael Phelps has the most powerful aerobic engine ever created in a human being. So I don't know if you've ever seen another cool subtlety of swimming. You know, we're taking our lactates, right? And you can kind of test what your blood lactate is after a race, and that kind of tells you a lot of different things. For me, if I swim a race to exhaustion, I spike my blood lactate from resting anywhere from, you know, 2 to 4 millimoles per liter or whatever the measurement is to like 15 plus, right? Huh. Michael, in 2008, he was spiking at like 6, which is just absolutely unheard of. He was just so efficient at generating lactic acid and then using those lactate ions as energy in his body. And you know, that comes from a lot of hard work. And definitely a lot of, you know, he had a lot of genetic things that were going for him too. You know, his dolphin kick is great. His shoulders are also very flexible. He also just has like a superhuman metabolism where, you know, even if he's, you know, doing kind of, even when he's not paying super close attention to his diet, which he did, especially leading in 2008, 2012, 16, but those off years where he was still setting world records and going super fast, he was still down at like a 5 or 6 like body fat percentage. I'm like, man, I'm working on everything that I possibly can. I still can't get down there. So, you know, there's certain things that are genetic and certain things that were just developed by him, and he worked so incredibly hard. And we talk about, you know, mind stuff, man. He is easily one of the most competitive people that I've ever seen, and it's been absolutely amazing to watch him and watch how he harnessed that competitive nature to just go in there. And, you know, every time he dives in, he is going to fight you. All right, there's no doubt. If you win against Michael Phelps, you earned that.
Yeah. And do you work together, or are you combatants?
Oh no, we definitely we're friends, man. Michael, he raced in the 100 free. And we were in the same heat in the 100 free several times, but at the same time, being on the 100 free is really special because you get to be part of Team USA for the relay. And you know, nothing is more exciting than that 4x100 freestyle relay. It's like right at the beginning of the Olympics. It kind of sets the tone for your team. And you know, we were, you know, side by side, and then we also got to finish the relay where he was doing butterfly and I was doing freestyle for the medley relay. And again, you're side by side. And having a guy like that, with that competitive nature, with that amazing aerobic engine that he's developed through years and years and years of training, it brings you a lot of confidence, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm walking up behind the block with my American flag cap, which is, it's hard to describe the power that brings, because we have a lot of tradition behind what we do as a team. But also you have the greatest Olympian of all time to your right.
When history looks back at you, Nathan, what were your strengths?
I just try to, when I go through being a swimmer, I do my best to make the right decisions. And I think that because I've had a lot of people around me who have done that, I've been able to observe that and watch that and been able to kind of absorb that and make it my own. And if that's something that, if there's something that I want to be remembered for, it's that, right? Because the right decision for me may not necessarily mean the right decision for you or whoever else it is, but it's right because because I know it's right, and that can be in any aspects of your life. And, we could go on and on about that. That can even go down to the time management component of life and even, work-life balance.
And your journey through the last 10 years, if you compare yourself as a swimmer when you were 19 in the Keys compared to today, what has happened along that way?
A whole lot. I'm thankfully, I do feel like I'm still the same person. I still try to make the right decision. I just think I probably know a little bit more now.
Yeah.
And probably, the right decision is more often, as I take a look back try to be objective about it, the right decision was the right decision at the time. Gosh, I'm just at a very different point in my life. I mean, I'm engaged. I'm excited about getting married. I'm excited about the prospect of having kids.
And what you do for fun? What do
I do for fun? I play a little golf. I happen to be terrible at golf.
Yeah.
But that's the point of golf, right? Just having fun, being out there in the sun. I can definitely harness my competitive nature and that drive in swimming, because I think if I tried to use my competitive nature in golf, I would just be really frustrated.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, just enjoying kind of the Bay Area and San Francisco. You talk about how amazing of a place it is. I think it's a place that is definitely amazing, and the more you get to experience it, you get to understand the intricacies of it and the interplay of the different companies that are here and the kind of the social direction that everything's going, and I enjoy being here and being part of it, and having the option to take part in that discourse.
And for the next generation, what would be your three best advice to become an Olympian in swimming or in other sports for the future?
It's only getting harder. I'm going to be honest. It's only getting harder. The competition is tough, and again, it is going to be a lot of hard work. It is going to be a lot of sacrifice. But I would definitely make sure, as I say that, I would make sure to tell them to take a day out of the week and pull yourself out of it and remove yourself and find a way to be balanced. Find some time for yourself. Again, like swimming, I've basically, in the U.S., let's talk about culture a little bit in the U.S.
Yeah.
Taco Tuesday is a big thing in the U.S., right? Or going out for happy hour Fridays is a big thing in the U.S. To this day, I really have probably experienced 3 Taco Tuesdays in my entire life. I can't remember the last, Friday I've gone out and, gotten to experience that social nature. So there's a lot of sacrifices that are involved. Yeah. But I absolutely 100% buy into those sacrifices being worth it. And I think that, as a young athlete, you're going to be tugged in both directions, and you really have to choose one, and you have to really buy into it. Because if you're stuck in the middle between this and that, that's okay for a certain amount of time. But when the time comes, you're going to have to choose one, and you just got to go with that decision and go with it all the way. Okay, so whether it's the right decision or not, the right decision is to buy into it, because you can change your mind later and then switch your paths. But trying to do both at the same time, more times than not is less successful than it should be.
And do you think that swimming can change the culture of youth today, because they're getting a little bit heavier and heavier, both in Europe and in the US, and swimming is burning a lot of calories?
Yeah, not only that, but again, it comes down to making those right decisions. It's you know what, I'm gonna get off the Skype call with you, and I'm gonna make myself a green smoothie. I'm gonna make sure that the rest of the day that my carbs that I'm getting are low glycemic index carbs. Making sure that I'm replenishing that glycogen and having enough protein to repair my muscles. It certainly has the ability to change the way that people think about almost every. It's certainly made me change the way I think about almost everything.
And you invest in your body and in your mind as well. What would be best advice for us to how to eat?
How to eat? Oh man, so I'm not a guy who is trying this diet, trying that diet, going dairy free, going this, whatever. We kind of subscribe to a notion of having a balanced lifestyle, a balanced diet too when it comes to that. And like I kind of said, it's okay to have those high sugar foods, but that is either before, during, or after practice. I'm going to hit, again, the rest of the day, it's kind of low end stuff in terms of like what my body is going through. So I'm going to have, like grains or like whole grains, that kind of stuff. And then making sure I'm getting enough protein throughout the day. And you can't get all your protein in one sitting. It's got to be, for me, I try to hit no more than about 25 grams per meal, and then just try to hit that, over and over and over every 2-3 plus hours, just to make sure that my body's well fed. And
you're getting married soon. Is it hard to have relationships while you're at your level of competition in swimming?
Yes.
You both have to make sacrifices.
With all things, there was a balance to it. And I am fortunate that my fiance, I was pretty frank with her, especially leading into and through 2016. I said, swimming is a priority to me. Like, you are also a priority, but you're going to be fighting a little bit of a battle. And after that, we're going to flip the switch, and we're going to figure out a new way to find a balance. So I think, relationships can be a net negative for an athlete if there is improper communication. If there is the right amount of communication, the right amount of frankness, then they can be utilized for good things. I feel more complete as a person because of having her in my life. I look back and I don't feel like I had a void, but it's almost like there was a void that I didn't know about. Yeah. So now I come home and I look forward to seeing her each and every day, and it just puts a smile on my face, and it's been great.
And swimming 10 years from now, how do you think it will look when you're 39?
It's going to be even faster, and I think it's amazing. People have talked to me about this a lot because there's been a lot of barriers in swimming that have been broken lately, and I liken it to a thing called Moore's Law. And I don't remember exactly how Moore's Law goes, but it basically is that the number of transistors on a given space on a chip will double in X number of years, and no one knows why, but it just has happened. And swimming is just going to get faster, and everybody has an explanation, and they have their whatever the reason is in their mind, but I personally believe no one truly knows why. And I think that is what I'm most excited about, what I'm most excited to witness, and what I'm most excited to come up with my own little postulation of what the reason is for those improvements.
And will we have the privilege to see you in the next Olympic?
2020, I'm going for it. Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Absolutely. 2020, I'm all in. 2024, if LA would have gotten the bid, probably more likely, but I'm not ruling 2024 out. I'm not ruling a run out of that. But again, there's going to be more life balances that come into play at that point.
Yeah, it's been amazing talking to you, Nathan, and sharing the wisdom from amazing years and exceptional journey. How if people want to learn more of your journey? Where did you go?
So you can go to my website, nathanadrian.com. You can also just reach out to me on social media. I do my best. I'm not perfect. We went over this again. Nathan.
Life work balance.
Yeah, exactly. Nathan G. Adrian. And that's either Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter.
Yeah. Warm thank you, Nathan, and the best of luck in the coming Olympics.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. It's